So, we're working on kidneys, and I wanted to talk some about fear today, specifically, based on what I felt in the classroom. What's going on? What did you notice this week with regards to last week's class and such? Let's start there. Cheryl, anything? Nope. Alright. Dave?
You know, I've been noticing how
I thought you had words.
Yeah, she did. One. Nope.
I have a fear of spontaneously reacting to the challenges that I face. I guess I'm not trusting myself enough. I'm not trusting my experience, my competence, my appropriateness. And it's kind of self-reinforcing. Once you get that hesitation, it's all the more difficult to be spontaneous and simply respond in the moment appropriately.
So like a decisiveness?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go there. Let's come in, because this is a wing it class, just so you know.
No, you're good.
Give me a fear. I mean, Dave just gave one as a, indecision and that kind of analysis paralysis that may come in with that. Am I making the right choice? That kind of stuff. That can come in. But what other fears can you think about that, it don't have to be your personal own worst nightmare.
To decisiveness?
No, not related, just
Oh.
related to fears. Let's play with this a little bit and see where it goes. You want me to get that?
Can't take you anywhere.
I can wait all day.
Fear of the unknown, fear of driving home in the rain from Baton Rouge. I don't know what you call that. It's anxiety. I mean, it's anxiety.
Well, that's how, yeah. The fear of the unknown is a common one. We'll get there. We'll get to the kind of the sensations around it and stuff like anxiety and that. But I'm just looking at fears right now. Just kind of some of the fears that are around, whether you're feeling them or you perceive them out in the communities.
Fear of being misunderstood, of outbursts, of losing yourself. Oh, come on, brainstorm with me.
Nobody in here is afraid of anything. Okay. Janet, anything?
Fear of rejection.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good one.
Fear of rejection.
Fear of success.
Fear of success.
Well, fear of making it worse by, the wrong decision.
Fear of escalating an issue.
Well, I'll put making it worse, but I'm making things worse. Because I think that's a good one. That's one that can come into play. Stacy, anything?
I'm drawing blank.
Fear of public speaking?
I'm still thinking about what we just did in there, so my mind's going.
Fear of not knowing an answer.
So, it's interesting, these are all very personal, right? Things that we all experience. I mean, this is welcome to being human. All of us experience this at any given point in time with the right circumstances. Because we don't have all the answers all the time. We don't know what we're doing half the time, if not more. And so we're kind of winging it. The analysis paralysis is things, it's like the decisiveness and the making things worse. To me, the fear of rejection feeds into that. If we look at, you know, I have to make a decision, whatever that decision is, all of this could come in. I don't know what the best decision is. I need to be decisive, but I don't know what the best decision is. What if they don't understand my decision, right? What if it's rejected? What if my decision is rejected? Fear of success is an interesting one because that's kind of oxymoronic in a sense. Where it's like success should be something that we strive for, something that we work with, but then I think that fear of success is very strongly tied to fear of failure, in the sense of the higher I go up the ladder, the harder the fall is. Does that come across? Does that make sense? So,
It's tied to the fear of unknown also.
yeah, I mean, and what I want to do is kind of explore these and see what's the common denominator here. What's the common denominator?
Fear.
Go sit in the corner. Fear of failure, fear of success, making things worse, rejection.
Lack of friendliness towards self.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Uncertainty.
uncertainty. You mean the common denominator? That's a good one.
Is it lack of trust in yourself?
Yeah. Well, think about this. Trust, from an energetic perspective, from our Chinese medicine, the 5-element practice, fear is kidney energy, trust is spleen energy. If we don't have trust, it nourishes fear. This is a mother-granddaughter relationship. So this is a controlling cycle. And so if I'm not trusting, then I'm going to manifest fear. And so when we start picking that apart, the question becomes, in my decisiveness, what am I not trusting? He asked inquisitively of the room.
I'm not trusting myself, my own competence.
Okay. Okay. With fear of the unknown, what am I not trusting? Anybody can answer this. I heard that. Captain Queen, pass the buck over here. In fear of the unknown, what am I not trusting?
Encountering worst case scenarios.
Things that I don't know. I don't have the certainty. If you think about fear, when you look at, so trust and worry are a balance. Fear, oops, wrong side. Fear here. And wisdom here. These are yin-yang balance of each other. And so in the unknown, there's knowledge or information I don't have. And so I'm afraid that, let's say I have to make a decision, I'm afraid that I don't have enough information to make the right decision. All right, which then feeds the indecisiveness, makes me feel less than competent. So it's going to create that, my lack of wisdom is going to push back into worry because I don't trust. It's kind of, it's a big cycle. That makes sense? I don't have wisdom, and so, I'm sorry, yeah, I mean, I don't have the trust. I don't trust that I have enough information, basically. Then I'm pushing into fear, and then that fear will then start to feed anxiety, the heart fire, the chaos. What about misunderstood? What am am I not trusting if I'm misunderstood? If I have a fear of being misunderstood, what am I not trusting?
Communication skills or others? Could be both.
Doesn't it come back to self? My own competence?
It depends on what others perceive you saying. Maybe you don't say it correctly. Something.
Don't have the best words?
Yeah. And then you're misunderstood because somebody thinks you said one thing, but you said something different. Or they didn't hear you out.
This one is a big one for me, personally. And for a long time, I felt misunderstood. And what I have learned so far, and I think that this is still a work in progress for me, is that as, we talk about that, I knew I was gonna draw it sooner or later. We talk about that mental and physical and emotional alignment. When I felt vulnerable, I didn't feel safe, I had my heart boxed up. I had it in a box. It was protected, it was in a wall, behind a wall for a long time. Still can go there. When it was in that space, one of the things that even Western science has measured, heart energy, is something very powerful that can be perceived up to 40 feet away. And so there's some studies that have been done with regards to heart energy. One of them that I thought was really beautiful is when you hand somebody an unexpected gift from the heart, just a generous, kind gift, the energy exchange between them changes their physiology, changes their hormones, the blood flow in their body changes, the hormone balances in their body changes from that place of gratitude. What's interesting is that it's somebody that is observing that act of kindness also gets the same hormone dump and balance, that beautiful love surge, if you will. Right? So there's a lot to that heart energy. I think, personally, and this is where I am in my process, is that misunderstood means that my heart is walled off. And people can't perceive my true intention. And this was a big deal for me, because I felt like I was being present and kind and loving, and people perceived me as being cold and arrogant and distant. And so as I've worked on my own process, I've realized that was because nobody could perceive that. It was behind a wall. And so that a big part of the misunderstanding was the fact that I wasn't able to just say, here I am, warts and all. Take me or leave me. I find myself way less misunderstood now than I used to be. It can still happen, but as I observe that, I find that in those cases, I'm not being completely available or authentic. Any awarenesses around that or questions about it? Sounds about right. It's a big one, and that's probably being able to just say, here I am, and be okay with whatever somebody else comes back with is hard. That's what this whole process of being grounded is. I mean, the thing that allows me to get up in front of a room without an agenda, or get up in front of 500 or 600 or 800 people and talk. Last year at the National Qigong Association conference, I found out about 15 minutes before the conference that I was going to be the MC. And I had no notes, nothing. And so it's like, okay, I'll just see what happens. It's not that I wasn't nervous because I've done it so many times, but it was more of that, I'm just going to roll the dice and I'll say what I need to say and try to get as many notes as I can as far as the things that I need to communicate to the audience, to the group. But hey, I just got the information. And that's the first thing I said when I went up there. It's like, hey, I just found out I'm supposed to be up here, so let's figure it out together. And that's the way I approached it. And so I didn't try to pretend I was something else and hide behind some shell, right? that people would see through anyway. Does that make sense? So it gave me the freedom to just say, well, fuck that up. Let's move on. Right? I introduced our keynote speaker for the night with about 5 words. Here is Dr. Duke Simpson. Here he is. Known him a long time, here he goes, have fun. And I left instead of like reading the bio or something like that and letting people know who he is. I was like, here he is, see ya. So I think that this one is a huge practice. It's a huge place of practice that is all self-contained. To me, it comes from heart energy and how available am I? And that's a scary thing. That's a hard and scary thing. Definitely feeds the fear engine. Rejection. Don't these two come in hand? Misunderstood and rejected? Why did they tell me no? Why don't they like me? Rejected for a job, for example. They don't understand what I can do for this company, how much love I have for this company. Right? I think that one of the most powerful things that can happen is we come to a place where this mantra that I got from Dr. Wayne Dyer, what you think of me is none of my business. What you think of me is none of my business. Because if I come up and I share to the best of my ability from my heart, from a centered place where I'm just saying, here I am, here's what we're doing, and I'm doing it from that place of openness, and somebody doesn't like it or is uncomfortable with it or something like that, I'm sorry. That's not on me. Now, if I'm being an ass, if I'm intentionally hurting people's feelings, that's on me.
So you're just accepting that if you're coming from where you are, from who you are, from being a genuine place, there's gonna be somebody else that, for reasons of their own, is gonna misunderstand.
Yeah.
And you're just gonna accept that that's gonna happen.
Correct. Because I have no control over how somebody feels about me. Because I don't have their life experience. If we think about, we're born, we have all these experiences, right, wrong, good, bad, up, down, left, right. And some of these experiences are going to be drawn from as reminders from time to time. So, triggers. And so if they meet you here, Dave, right, and you show up this way, and it reminds them, maybe the shirt you're wearing reminds them of somebody, maybe the tone of your voice, how you look, reminds them of somebody that maybe didn't sit too well with them, right? Could be a male figure, right? It doesn't matter. But they're seeing you through the filter of their life experience. You have no control over that.
It's not your responsibility.
And it's not your responsibility. I've had people misunderstand me and me being authentic. So at that point in time, if I'm showing up and they're not seeing me, and as president of the association, I get that a lot. I have some of the people in the association over the years that I've been working with them thought that I was a power hungry or that kind of stuff, and I was trying to manipulate the board and things. Nothing could be further from the truth, but that's what their perception was. Because of their history with the association, there was some things that happened in the early part of the association that caused those filters to come in. So now anybody that comes in and is trying to make a positive impact or influence or has an opinion that's other than the status quo is going to be seen through those filters and then be judged accordingly. And it's like, that's not on me.
That reminds me of a story. So I just became a yoga instructor and I was subbing just for classes. I was on my 3rd class. I subbed for the owner that had been doing yoga for over 20 years. I thought, she loves me, she's ready for me to do this, I got this. And I had been fine before. So I go into this third class and no one knows I'm coming because her name's still on the books. You should have seen their face. Wah, wah, wah. They don't even know who I am. They've never met me. And it was, oh, probably turned it up, sorry. It just was really offset me for the whole class, which class was fine, but inside I was just all jumbled.
Yeah.
But it was that look, you could see it on their face, they didn't say a thing.
Right,
So-
but it's that so in that situation, they had an an expectation of what to expect, who was gonna be teaching, what they were gonna do, maybe they're feeding in from the last class or something like that. And it has nothing to do with you, it has everything to do with how they're perceiving their experience, right?
But in that moment.
No, I understood.
It's
Well,
like,
no, and I totally get that. And that's a good example of, it's like, wow, you could have really just cratered and said, I can't do this,
Yeah.
But instead you said, hey, let's have some fun,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's a good example of it in that you don't have any, if I'm teaching to a room of, I'm posting these afternoon videos online. I'm still waiting for the trolls to come out of the woodwork and I'll try to deal with them respectfully because, they're coming through a set of filters that is not mine. So I have no way to know whether, I'm listening for the validity of whatever's said. But creating that space where it's like, it's very freeing to not care what other people think of you.
But you are listening for the validity of whatever they respond with.
If somebody reflects back a negative thing, I want to listen to it. I want to take it in and say, how am I showing up? Because I'll take responsibility for my part of it. If they're seeing me through X, Y, and Z filter, then how am I showing up here that is feeding these filters? It's not my responsibility to fix or change these filters, but am I in some way being crass or disrespectful that I'm not intending to, that is causing somebody to feel uncomfortable? Not that, I cuss and my wife says I shouldn't cuss as much, and it's like, okay, well, 6 years in the Navy, I'm sorry, but I was well trained. But it's sometimes the word just needs to be that. It has to be. I try to be careful with it, but so what? It's there. It's just a word to me. I'm not going to hell because I said something other than HE double hockey sticks. So I want to take, to me, what I try to do is create a consistent assessment path. If I ruffle somebody, I want to understand it. I don't want to ruminate on it to the point of pain and suffering inside myself, but I want to say, okay, this just happened. What can I learn from it? How can I show up better next time? And in my life, there's been times through my healing process and such that I'm still well working on. I have gone back and made amends with people that I have hurt. I have gone back and sat down with them and said, you know what? You remember this? And some of them didn't remember, but I remembered it. It locked in on me. I'm really sorry. This is where I was at that point in time, and I'm not there anymore, and what can I do? So we don't have to be perfect. We just have to be who we are at this moment in time. You hear about the saying of, all I need to do is be better than I was yesterday. So if I'm here today, this was yesterday, am I better today than I was yesterday? And it may be fractions better. But we can't be the same. Often we look back and we say, well, this is who I used to be, and I'm still that person. It's like, that's just utter crap. You cannot be the same person twice. You can feel stuck, but you can't be the same person twice, because every interaction we have at some level changes who we are. When we feel stuck, and this is something when we get into in triggers and all of that, but when we feel stuck, it's because there's some kind of a payoff that's keeping us stuck. We're getting value out of staying stuck. And it could be the recurrent pity parties that I throw for myself, or it could be somebody in my family is enabling that by taking care of me, or that kind of stuff. It could be anything, but if we're stuck in a pattern of suffering, it's because there's some kind of payoff for us there. So in the indecisiveness that you talked about, Dave, not making a decision means that I don't have to suffer the consequences of a bad decision. So,
Well, it's even worse when you can't decide.
Is
No
it,
decision
though?
is worse than some decisions.
is it? At some point I agree with you, but for a long time people can get into this indecisiveness, right? And they get stuck in this ethereal, neutral space that I'm not making decisions, but I'm only hurting myself. I'm suffering here, and my decisions aren't hurting somebody else, right? Which is not always true, because sometimes indecisiveness can create a lot of pain around you. But there's this comfort in knowing that I haven't made a bad decision, and that can be the payoff. But at some point we do get to a point where that stagnation, and you think about it from a yin-yang perspective, right? That indecisiveness can be really, really powerful, but at some point it has to shift, and we end up making a decision. And sometimes the pressure is so strong inside, we end up making a decision that is reactionary instead of responsive. Because we're coming from a place of fear, I have to do something, and then the decision is wrong. It's not the best one we could have made. And then immediately after we've made it, we look back and say, well, that was a stupid thing to do, right? That happens to us all. But when we operate more from a centered place, from a more grounded place, more clear-headed, we create a space where we say, all right, I've got to make a decision. I want to look ahead. I want to see, like if I'm here at this point in my life and I'm looking at decisions, I want to look at best case, worst case here, and look at all the different ones in between. And ideally, I want to look at the worst case position of my decision. What's the worst thing that can happen? Really worst. I mean, like off the bar worst. And if I can make myself okay with that, then anything after that is great. Right? And you're not going to have all the answers, because there's a movie, because you can't know the future. I can't anyway. There was a movie called The Bridge. And I don't remember all the premise behind it, but what I understand of it, and I haven't watched it in a long time, but what I understand of it was supposed to be a documentary about the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge. But the people filming it started filming suicides. People jumping off the bridge. That is the suicide capital of the world. At least it was. I don't know what it is now. And then what they decided to do was started going and finding the people that actually survived and interviewing them. And one of the things that was interesting was that they said, I'm holding on to the railing of the bridge, and I felt like there was no answers. There was just no answers. Like this was jumping off was the only thing that made sense. I couldn't think clearly and all of that. And some of them said, when I let go, the moment after I let go, I didn't want to die anymore. They had that moment of clarity that shifted them from that stagnation into clarity because they made a decision. Right? The ones that survived didn't want to kill themselves anymore. If I'm remembering the movie correctly. That's what stuck with me. And so, the idea there is that, you know, life cycles, we have this yin-yang, you can go in and you see it's a cycle. And so when you're at your deepest, it'll start to ramp up. Now, a suicide attempt is a straight shot up. That's like an immediate shift, because you're going from this deep stagnation to a decisive action. The challenge is that some of the mechanisms of injury, MOIs, are permanent and very quick. Right? In my circle of family and friends and such, I had 2 suicide attempts this past year. In my professional circles, there's 3 officers that I know of that killed themselves, and there's in the police departments, you know, nationwide, an officer is more likely to die of suicide than in the line of duty. Statistically, that's a fact. And that's, you know, so that decisiveness can be permanent when more often than not, it's just a deep stagnation that needs to be addressed. But going back to this, sorry, I kind of got really down in the low end here. A lot of this unknown, misunderstanding, rejection is that lack of trust. Am I competent? I don't trust myself. I don't trust myself to have all the facts. I don't trust myself to be understood. I don't trust myself to not experience rejection. But as we've been talking about, as we've been working, you know, if my heart is open and my mind is clear, and I'm not saying this is easy, this takes work. If my heart is open and my mind is clear and somebody rejects me, that's not about me. I have students come and go. I may never see Stacy again. Right? That's not about me. You guys are awfully quiet. Fear of making things worse. This is another one of those trusts that I don't have enough information. Whatever decision I make, it's going to be worse. It's going to be, you know, a failure. I love the word failure. How do we, as humans, as a human race, how do we learn?
Through failure.
Through failure.
I tell my students, you never fail until you stop trying.
It can just be incredibly painful at the moment.
It depends. I know. Eventually I was going to say it. It depends. It depends on how you look at failure. When we stepped into this training center, so I could have easily leaned on this massive block of failure that was staring me in the face. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment are going to be like, okay, right? Time, effort, can fail. Okay? I trust that if we had to close the doors tomorrow, that I'd still be on my feet, that I would continue to, I'd figure out the next step. It's like, what's next? I don't know, let's see. When the VA decided that the 5-year contract that they had promised us after working well for 4 years was like not available anymore, that was a huge hit. It's like, okay, what's next? Look, surprise. I didn't see this coming. So, but without the failures prior, I wouldn't have the opportunity to make this stronger and better. failure to me is simply a step towards success. I love the story, I don't know if it's true or not, but I love the story of was it Thomas Edison? When he presented the light bulb, he described, it was either light bulb or battery, but he described 1,000 ways on how the light bulb had not worked. And one of the reporters says, well, how does it feel to have failed 1,000 times at making a light bulb? And he said, I didn't fail 1,000 times, I learned 1,000 different ways not to make a light bulb. And then that's what we have to do. I mean, failure, every time I fail, I see it as something that I can step up onto as I continue my path. Can I learn from it? Can I grow with it? Can I create a space where I become better for having had this experience? Can you? Man, it got awfully quiet back there. So to me, let's talk a little bit about the fear of success. What does that look like? Does anybody in here have that? All right, let's scratch it off the board. You guys are tough today.
Hard to know.
Why? Because you've been a failure all your life? Is that- I refuse to believe that.
I'm not sure what I'd be afraid of in success, but possibly so.
I think that the fear of success can be, I think it feeds into the fear of the unknown. What does success look like? I mean, all of us in here just now, we're like, what is success? What does success look like? I don't know. What would success look like for me? I don't know.
Possibly overwhelming, that would be a reason to.
Yeah, that
Too
unknown,
much
that
happens all of a
uncertainty.
sudden, and
Your life no longer is your
It's
own.
no
You
longer
have
that.
too many responsibilities and you can't do what you want to do. Right? When you think about celebrity, everybody celebrates celebrities, but the ones that I've met and worked with, they're hurting. They're hurting. Their life is no longer their own, and it's painful. It's difficult. They do everything they can to try and create some normalcy, and most of them that are able to create normalcy have to basically quit the profession that they love and go isolate themselves for a while until the media spotlight shifts away from them. I haven't worked with a lot of them, but the ones that I've worked with have been that way. CEOs, I've worked with, high-level executives in corporations, and they're hurting. The success, they can buy anything they want, but the success comes at a price for them because in some cases, they didn't take care of this. So they started becoming more armored in order to protect themselves from the onslaught of responsibilities and such. They became more cold, callous, calculated. And so the pain is not because of their success, the pain is of who they've become as they become successful.
Well, then that's not a success.
Depends on your measure of success. I mean, some of the people I work with, their measure of success is what kind of car they drive, what kind of house they live in, how much money they have in the bank. I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday who's, one of their family members, their relationship to success is, I could live for another 80 years and not spend all my money. It's like, can I have his number? Yeah, but
Well, and the more success you have, the more money you make, and I have several friends that have bigger homes and bigger cars, and it just keeps going, and they're never there to enjoy it.
right, they're having to work to maintain it, but that's where the suffering comes in.
No, they're not happy because they think they are, because it's a material thing.
Right.
They're in a different mindset.
And then so they start reaching out. And the thing is they got there by isolating again, isolating themselves. They don't know what it feels like to be present anymore. And I'm not saying this is a broad brush, everybody's that way, because I've met some really incredible, inspirational people that are successful, but, or know of. And so it's not a certainty that success breeds pain. It's just that if success, so I think that the fear of success is not of success. The fear of success, the fear is of being walled off, to being isolated, targeted. So you have to protect yourself. So you're no longer, your life is not your own. Your soul is not your own. So, you know, think about some of the things. Oh, he sold his soul to the devil. Right? He's successful. He sold his soul to the devil. He went after material things. Okay.
So if you're walled off, you have a fear of success, but if you have success, then you're more walled off? That's what you're saying.
I think success
You
by
become more walled
itself,
off?
I think success by itself is something that we strive for, and it has different meaning for different people.
It seems like you're describing overwhelming success, which has the dark side of walling you off, whereas a real success might be a lot less dramatic, and yet you're still open-hearted.
Yes, yes. I mean, success, like I just said to Cheryl, success is relative. What is successful to me? Successful to me is keeping open, loving, honest relationships with the people in my life. Having genuine conversations. The fact that all three of my boys are still willing to have conversations with me is success to me.
Right.
Right? Do we keep, you know, we can look at any corner of our lives and either measure success or measure failure. You know, I can say, I have a lot of wonderful things in my life, but this, or but that. Makes sense? It's good to meet you. Right? And part of when we look at the suffering of the fears and the uncertainty and the indecisiveness and such, part of the suffering, I think, comes from the not good enough engine. The not good enough engine is powerful, and it is. It's a driving. To me, I believe it's a driving force in our survival, where it took us out from the jungles or the sand or wherever, you know, in the elements, and it's like, well, there's a cave, let's go try that out, and it's damp in there, so let's build fire and let's put a door on it, and oh, their door's nicer than our door, and so started keeping up with the Joneses. But it's that not good enough engine keeps us moving towards success. So we can say not good enough, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough, but never good enough locks us down and says, what's the point? You see the difference? Not good enough keeps me trying, keeps me moving forward. This is good, but I can do better. This is good, but I can do better. Never good enough is no matter what I do, it's never good enough. And so what's the point? Or I'm never satisfied to a point that I'm always in pain. I can't reach that place of what in French is translated as content, happy, contentment. I can't be content. Right? It's like I have this training center. When I unlock that door and I come in here and I feel a deep sense of gratitude every day, I don't have this feeling of, man, I really want one in Arlington or in Fort Worth, and until I have 5 or 6 around the city or 100 around the country, I won't be happy. That's not it. I come in and I say, thank you so much for this opportunity to be of service. And if that happens later, okay, but I'm not driving for that. One of my friends who's very successful, that drives him nuts. It drives him nuts that I'm not pushing hard. And he's been telling me that for years and years and years. You need to do this and this and this and this, and that's like, if it shows up, I'll be there, but if it doesn't show up, that's okay too. And it's not that I'm lazy or afraid of failure or something like that, it's just that I value my family time and my own well-being to a point where I'm not going to drive and have this be the only thing that I do. So tonight, when I get done with work, there's a hockey game. And yeah, I could sit in front of the computer and work on the website, but I'm gonna watch a hockey game with my boys. It may be the last one I get for a while. Right? Because that matters to me. So, not good enough is fine. It keeps us moving forward. Never good enough creates a place of deep suffering. And it can create that stagnation that you're talking about, the indecisiveness, right? The uncertainty. Because no decision I make is good enough. Well, there is no perfect. So, make a decide. I'm realizing I forgot to take the clock off the wall, so the entire recording, if it's still recording, is going to be tick, tick, tick. So I apologize. Questions on this? We kind of went all over the place a little bit.
Building trust.
Trust is a huge anchor point. And trust is earth energy. It's this. It's grounding. That's why every time somebody comes in and they're working with me in clinic, the first thing I want to do is check and see how grounded they are. And then encourage them on grounding practices. Basic, fundamental, I need to be on the ground. And if I can't connect to the ground, if I can't ground my mind, ground my emotions, ground my body, then nothing else I try to do is going to help. So why bother?
How do you ground your emotions?
When your mind becomes quiet and your body feels strong, your emotions will settle. How far they settle depends on what's going on. But as I've said before, you know, when we're working to quiet the mind, settle the emotions, relax the body, whatever's in your way will show up. And so if my mind is racing and I'm having trouble focusing, then that's what I need to work on first. If my mind is able to get really quiet and settled, and I can't feel anything here, I don't have access to my emotions, I'm heavily walled off, then that's where I need to work. And I'm not talking about like taking a jackhammer to the heart, and I'm talking about just being present to when it shows up. Right? So if an example would be, throughout our day we get triggered. And like this holiday, this particular holiday for some reason has been very hard for me. There's been a lot of energies that have come back to say, hey, you're not done with me yet. Around loss, around family, around connections, and it's been hard. As reminders come in, and they may be subconscious, but as reminders come in, I start feeling a heaviness in my heart, pressure in my chest. I feel my heart energy stirring, and I want to ground myself. I want to become physically still, mentally quiet, so that I can listen for whatever my heart is available to say. And if tears flow, and if I need to write, I write, but I want to be present to that. And the more I do that, the more grounded my heart becomes, because what happens is it starts to relax this wall. It starts to create perforations when I'm not trying to actively shut it down. And the more grounded I become, the more open I can be, the safer my heart feels. Because for a long time for me, cracking open my heart felt like Pandora's box. I don't know if I'm going to survive this. I don't know if I feel safe enough, if I can feel safe enough to let what's in my heart out. There was such a rage behind it that if I open this up, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'll ever be the same again. And the truth is, you won't ever be the same again. You'll be a better version of yourself. Because if you do the work of opening it up, somebody's hungry. If you do the work of opening up and working with that, and for me it was in increments, then it creates an environment where you start to get stronger and smarter, and again, keep climbing that ladder in little bits. And up here, you have much more clarity than you might have than you would without that work. That is a messy board. Questions? All right, guys, thank you very much, and thank you for your time and attention.